There we go. Now the mic's on. Thanks. Yeah, so good morning, everyone. And yes, we are on Twitch today, not on Zoom. We will be on Zoom on Wednesday and Friday, although some of you may come in person on Wednesday. So that's going to be our pattern for the rest of the semester pretty much. Maybe a couple changes to that, but yeah, should always plan on Monday is Twitch and Wednesday is either even or odd cohort in person, and then Friday is Zoom for everybody. And on Wednesdays, of course, if you're not in the in-person cohort that day, then you should be on Zoom that day. And in fact, this is this is the odd group this week, Bobby. So I believe that's you. So I will see you on Wednesday. Oh yeah, this is not the tab I wanted up. I was just playing around with this tool here. Let me get that off and move this way in here. Yeah, great. So today I'm going to be talking about interactive fiction, and today's a live stream, obviously because it's Monday, but also because there are several things I wanted to demo, and I think it makes a bit more sense to demo them this way. I think it'll also work better than Zoom for demoing it, so that's why Twitch is a good option for us. So today I'm going to give you some things to add a little bit of context and demonstration around the thing that you've already read, which is the first part of the chapter. Is it chapter 4? Yeah, I guess it's chapter 4 from Scott Rutberg's book, Electronic Literature. We're going to take a look at some of those things from there. A lot of you had some interesting questions in the annotations for that, so I tried to answer a lot of those, by the way. You should see them in Prologue with my name on it, even though the assignment that I set up was actually set up to be anonymous, and I'm actually not sure how that worked, because I think some of you were chatting anonymously, like typing anonymous because you would like interact with each other anonymously, but in a couple cases your comments still had your name on it, and I'm not totally sure how that worked. I have a theory, but in any case, if you left your name, I hope that's okay, or I hope you did it on purpose. Like I hope it wasn't just accidentally including your name without meaning to. I just want to make sure people always kind of know when their identity is being divulged and when it isn't. So I don't know. We'll maybe talk about that on Wednesday because it'll be easier. So Moon is typing in Discord that I think you'll see your own name. At least I see everyone's name. So I think that's the same sense where you would see your own name, but not others. I don't know. We can continue to investigate. Okay, yeah. So that's what that button's always there as saying, and there is the anonymous toggle button. I wonder if when I set the assignment to be anonymous comments only, I wonder if it just sort of defaulted you to anonymous, and then you had the option to de-anonymize yourself, and maybe some people did. That's one theory I have about how that happened. Another theory is that you might have come into the document not through the assignment link, but through the library link, in which it may not have carried in the anonymousness of that assignment, which is just a sort of how I'm not sure how Prologue distributes that permissions. So anyway, it doesn't really matter, I think, but just FYI, I suppose. All right, most of the comments were anonymous. So hopefully, though, if you see my comments, you see my name, because I think it probably helps to know that it's me saying certain things. So if not, that could be awkward. So let me know. I didn't see an option in my comment to be anonymous or not. I just posted it. So I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about interactive fiction. Let me talk about interactive fiction. So in addition to using Prologue to annotate Scott Rutberg's chapter, your other homework was to play Zork, and so I hope you played Zork. I hope you got to the Underground Empire in Zork, and if you needed a walkthrough to get there, that's fine. There is kind of a thing you need to know or figure out, and if you've never played Zork before, certainly if you've never played this kind of thing before, it can definitely take a minute, and it can be a challenge. It's a puzzle. Like it's a game. It's not meant to be just like, here's the next thing. The game is trying to figure out what to do next, and that's the challenge with Zork. If you did not get to that, then you should. I will be asking you about that on the quiz. When we get to do the quiz on interactive fiction, I will ask you about things that you did in your experience of playing Zork, or that you would only know if you played Zork. So please make sure you do it. If you can't figure out how to do it, or if you get stuck, then you should ask for help. You should not assume that you don't have to do it if you can't, if that makes sense. Similarly, I want to talk a bit about the homework. So two things that I would like you to play for homework. Galatea by Emily Short and Photopia by Adam Cadre. So these are two works that are much more modern than, much more, comparatively contemporary, still pretty old at this point, actually, but certainly newer than Zork. And there are some things to know about them. Okay, so Moon's typing. I know your actual name, but I'm just using your Discord name. Zork, you got to keep it pretty simple for Zork. It's pretty old, so there's crying and laughing are the same emoji, I think, right? Cry laughing. Anyway, you can't type emoji in Zork. Let me talk about Galatea and Photopia really quick. These are two works I definitely want you to spend some time with. And Photopia, you need to get to the end of Photopia. Galatea has many, many endings, and so you should get to several. I don't think it's reasonable to try to get to all of them in any, I don't know how long that would take. I don't think I've ever done that. But for Galatea, it is doable, right? So let me show you a few things about Galatea. This little opening is pretty interesting. Make sure you read this. I'm not going to read it now just because I want you to do this. This is how it works. So when you play Galatea, the main idea, the main thing that you're doing in Galatea, which you've read about now from the chapter, the main thing you're doing is you're talking to Galatea. She is a non-player character. You are someone else. You are playing as a character, but who you are as you play the game is actually kind of interesting in this and not obvious at first. And you can spend a little time trying to understand your player character as well as trying to understand and interact with Galatea, who's the non-player character. So like most of these games, you can type help and get some advice about what to do. So you can ask Galatea about herself. Read the placard, she says. That's what it's there for, after all. Okay, so read the placard. And there's some stuff about Galatea. Ask Galatea about, I misspelled it, about Marvel. And then you can go on. And so there's several different things you can ask her about. She will remember all of these things. And the things that the ways that she interacts with you depend on a series of choices and depend on things that you've chosen to ask her about that might not be obvious. Like the things that you think that are interesting might end up leading her to a certain kind of idea about you as a player character. And the thing that you can try to do when you play this is try to get to certain specific endings. So one ending is you and Galatea leave the gallery together. It's implied romantically. You might consider that a good ending or the best ending. She can also kill you. So that's also kind of interesting, an ending to try to get to. Various people can show up. There is an ending where you get a glimpse at the author, Emily Short. At least I think there is. I feel like I saw that ending once, but then I wasn't able to get it again. So maybe I imagined it. But I feel like there is an ending where you see Emily Short, the author of this work, appear. But also Aphrodite, Athena, there are different people can show up. So those are the different things you might try for. There is a walkthrough on the website, I believe, right here, as you can see, it's linked in this. So I would say though, try not to look at it at first. So spend a little bit of time working with it to begin with. All right. So the other thing that I would like you to play is Photopia, and as I said, Photopia. It's very important that you get to the ending of Photopia so we can talk about it. And if you have not gotten to the end of Photopia, you won't be able to talk about it, and I want you to talk about it. I want to hear your thoughts on it. So I don't want instructions, but if you want, you can get instructions, I guess. It's pretty straightforward. The instructions for Photopia, the interactions you can do are very common. Like, they're not unusual things. So this is the kind of prologue. Will you read me a story? Read you a story. What fun would that be? I've got a better idea. Let's tell a story together. And to get it started, you start off in this screen, speeding down Montgomery Boulevard. The streetlights are bright, unbearably bright. You have to squint as hard as you can to keep your retinas from bursting into flame. Welcome back to the land of the living, bud, Rob says. You plan to stick around for a while, or are you going to pass out again? Because one thing I've learned about chicks is that they actually don't like it when you pass out on them in the middle of getting it on. You hear me? So if that's like your plan, then I'm dropping you off and showing up solo. So one of the things that you will quickly learn as you play Photopia is that, I hope you learn, is that you play as different characters throughout this work. So it is often useful to look at yourself in order to figure out who you are and kind of what's going on. There are several puzzles in Photopia. They are pretty low-level puzzles. And in other words, they are not as tricky as they seem at first. And that's easy for me to recognize because I know how to get through it, but as you play it, they can feel like puzzles. They can feel like real puzzles. I guess what I can say without spoiling too much is that they're easier when you let go of the idea of it being a puzzle. Like whenever you try to stop solving it like a puzzle, that's a way out of it. If that makes sense. That sounds really vague, but let me show you one example. I think I'm not going to read all this right now. I'll just give you a little bit of it. Z, by the way, is just the standard command to wait, so just nothing happens, and then you see the next turn. There's a car crash. I don't know if I went too fast through that, but make sure you read these carefully because there was a car crash right at the end. The car we're riding in ends up going through the intersection. So I see Loretta's comment about Zork. Yeah, you gotta. Well, I will show you how to do some stuff in Zork. Once you get it, it's fine. Like I think there's just a specific pattern you have to always use. Okay, you are Wendy McKay, the first girl on the Red Planet. So this part tells you exactly who you are, and so you can always do the same thing. Look at me, L at me. You hardly need to be reminded of what you look like, Wendy, even if you didn't see yourself in the mirror every morning. The countless newspaper pictures and magazine covers would remind you. So in this section, which is on the Red Planet, your goal is to retrieve a seed pod and then bring it back to your spaceship. And you might think that this is sort of a hunt the treasure kind of thing, like in Zork, and you have to spend a lot of time finding it or doing things with it. It actually is not. What you have to do is, and this is kind of a hint, whichever direction you go in at first is correct, and then once you find the seed pod, the directions back to the spaceship are whatever you did, but in reverse. So the easiest way to do it is just to go north, 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 north until you get to where the seed pod is, and then you'll get a message saying you need to return to the ship, and then just go south, 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 and get you right back to the ship. So that's a pretty big hint, not even a hint. That's really just telling you how to do it. There are things like that in several of the other scenes in this game. Even calling it a game, this is more of a short story than a game, and it's much more about the writing and the characterization. So if you do get stuck, there is one place where many people get stuck, the Crystal Maze. I got stuck in the Crystal Maze for a long time the first time I played this, and I think I figured it out on my own. I don't think I asked anybody. I think I did eventually figure it out. But if you do get stuck in the Crystal Maze, ask for help. Don't just be like, well, I guess that's it. Because there is a way out of the Crystal Maze, and there's quite a bit of the game after that. So if you get stuck in the Crystal Maze and you can't figure it out, ask for help. I will try to give you spoiler-free help at first, hints basically. One hint is, as I just said earlier, look at yourself, and sometimes that might reveal a strategy that you had not thought of. So that's my spoiler-free hint. But it is a playable game. It is a game that once you know how to do it, takes maybe 30 minutes or an hour at most if you're reading carefully, right? And this is a literary work, so I do want you to read it, right? You should definitely spend some time reading it and thinking about what you're seeing. And again, paying attention to who you are, right? So who you play as is very important. Okay, so that's my little spiel. So that's the homework for Wednesday. Make sure you do both of those things so you can talk about these things on Wednesday. Cool. All right, so here's just a quick timeline of some of the basic, I mean, this is not a complete timeline, obviously, and there's plenty more to talk about, but these are just a few key events. I can think of actually several more recently things that would be interesting to add, come to think of it. But we often start the interactive fiction's story with Colossal Cave Adventure in 1975-76, created by Will Crowther and then enhanced by Don Woods. Will Crowther made the first version, put it out on the ARPANET, and basically that was it. Like, he wasn't really interested in doing much else with it. Don Woods added some features. It's being distributed on the ARPANET as free, as shareware, just as free software that people can install if they have a computer, which is most people didn't have computers in 1975. So if it was installed on a computer, it was usually installed on a mainframe, like a PDP-10 kind of system. And if you were playing that, you were either in a computer lab or you were connecting to it through a phone line and through a teletype terminal. So you would be typing something on what essentially looks like a typewriter, and then it would send that message through your phone, and then it would come back to you maybe a minute or two later and print out whatever the output of your command was. So, not a great way to work, but it was cutting edge at the time. I just mentioned that to show you how we will use these things, and when you play this in an emulator, it's just instant when you see the response. But it's a pretty different experience when you have to wait a minute or two. I mean, can you imagine you type something and you misspell a word, and then so a minute or two later you get back the message saying, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that, or whatever the error is. That'd be pretty frustrating if you had to wait that long for it. But that's how it was. All right, so Adventure, and then Infocom is a company that is founded in 1979 in order to sell Zork. Zork was originally created in a similar way on a mainframe kind of computer by some MIT students, and they said, hey, we can sell this as software. This is the beginning of the home PC boom, so people are buying computers for their homes, and they need software for those computers. And so the idea of being able to sell software as a product is really just getting started. And it's interesting that between 75 and 79, basically, it didn't occur to Will Crowther to sell Colossal Cave Adventure. He just put it out there for free. But that's around the time when people who make software and then wanted to make a living selling it really had to argue for the fact that this is intellectual property that needs to be bought and sold, and that we need a living. Bill Gates was right in there in the middle of it. He was that was one of his major interventions or moments when he became kind of the kind of infamous or notorious moments. Basically, he wrote this letter to the hacker community, just basically lambasting them for stealing his work by making copies of software. And so his argument was, you need to pay for software. But that's an idea that actually had to be invented and had to be developed. And it's information, so how can you own facts? Like, how can you own numbers? But that's essentially what software is. So anyway, there's a bit of that kind of tangent. But Zork is software. Zork is software you can buy. You can go to the computer store and buy a copy of Zork, or you can send in a postcard or write a letter to the address at the back of your computer magazine, and they'll send you a copy. So they start that company, and they do really well actually for the early 1980s. Zork was a pretty big hit, and Zork and its sequels were bestsellers. I mean, this was like this is what was known as a killer app, in the sense that it convinced people to get PC computers. They were like, well, I've heard about PCs, but I don't know if I should get one. But then they hear about, or they see someone playing Zork, and they're like, oh, this is cool, I want one. And then they buy a computer so they can play Zork. And the story that I was told about UMW, back when it was Mary Washington College, obviously, when the computer science department was first started, this is around around the same time, early 1980s, I think 1980 is when the computer science department was started. UMW had a mainframe kind of computing lab, and so they had Zork on it, and parents called Ernest Ackerman, the founder of that department, and complained. They said that their children, their students, were not going to classes because they were in the computer lab playing Zork all the time. So this is an example of how popular that was, which I mentioned because the game will probably seem clunky and frustrating to you now, but I'm kind of making the case that this used to be state-of-the-art, cutting-edge stuff that was very compelling in its time. Well, anyway, that time didn't last very long, I guess, as far as Infocom is concerned. They were bought by Activision, which is a video game publisher, and basically fell off the map pretty quickly. And so basically by 91, they were done as a company. Not Activision, Infocom. Activision is still going strong, but Infocom. So in the early 90s, something else happens, which is that Graham Nelson reverse engineers Zork and writes software that you can use to code your own games. And so you could write your own, it's a programming language, but also a compiler. So you could write your own Zork-like games, and then you've got that software. Infocom's tools were always proprietary, so they never published those. But Graham Nelson has figured out how to do it. And there's others. TADS is another interactive fiction system. And there's a couple more, but those are the main two. And those are what make it possible for there to be a hobbyist community of people just making these for fun or because they're interesting. And because there's no commercial pressure around that community, there's just competitive pressure. There's like the idea that you just want to, impress your friends and show off to the community of people that are doing the same kind of thing as you. Then you start to see really interesting experimental work, and they really push the boundaries, and they create things like Photopia, like we'll see, which is from 1998. To really experiment with what's possible in this medium. And certainly there were some literary works done with Infocom. There's one called A Mind Forever Voyaging, which is fascinating. It's a novel-length work about AI, and it's really interesting, but it's it's not that accessible today. But the hobbyist community in the 90s are making shorter works, so they are more digestible and they're more experimental. So you get this really interesting flourishing of development in the 90s around these things. So then I also just mentioned Chris Clemens created Twine in 2009. And I mentioned Twine here because Twine, as we know, is hypertext software. It creates things like what StorySpace can do as hypertext. So technically, literally, it is hypertext. But many people use Twine to create interactive fiction as well. Those would be examples where instead of typing go north, you click a link that says go north. And so you can have the same kind of sense of space being explored and puzzles being solved and the things that you associate formally with in interactive fiction, just not with a parser, and the parser being the technical thing that you type in to accomplish those things. That's the big difference there. We'll talk about Twine a bit more next week, and obviously many of you had some experiences with Twine already. All right, some basic terminology. The parser is the bit that you type in. That's technically the parser is the thing that interprets what you type, but we visualize it as that place where you see the greater than sign. That's the thing that you type. That's based on, and that comes directly from the command line or the terminal on your computer, which all computers still have. But it used to be the case that that's all computers were. Like that's all you had was the command line. And so this is the interactive fiction command parser has that same. It comes from there, the same look, often the same symbols, and I'll show you different examples of how that looks in a minute. But just keep that in mind. That's a key word there, parser. That's a vocabulary word. The kind of thing that might be on a quiz someday. A couple other terms. So this came up in the notes in Perusal. Some people have some questions about game terminology. So I thought it might be useful to mention this. Player characters versus non-player characters. So player character is who you are when you play the game, like who you're playing as. And so if you remember Snack Time, that was the first thing like this that we played. In Snack Time, the player character is Hardy the Bulldog. And the non-player character is the human pet who sits on the couch, right, or sleeps on the couch at the beginning of the game. Basically, the non-player character or the NPCs are anything else in the game, any other beings in the game that you can interact with. Well, actually, not necessarily that you can interact with, but that are characters that do exist in some way in the game. But the player character, that's who you are. In a lot of cases, like in Zork, the player character is basically a blank slate. You just play as yourself, essentially, although you have certain abilities that you don't probably have in real life, but your character has is otherwise not described with gender or physical attributes at all. So you just mentally kind of put yourself in the place of that character. Most people would say that they probably do, but that's actually a bit iffy, and that doesn't always work, and we can talk more about that later on perhaps. But we usually we think of that character as something kind of like us or as a proxy of us. But in many cases too, though, it's important to learn what you can about the player character, just as it is important to learn about the non-player characters. So the player character is a character. They are a being created by the writers of the game, and so they have things that you can learn about them. So make sure you try to do that whenever you play these. All right, so the interpreter, this is the thing that's running the software. It's the software that's running the game. So the game exists as a compiled file. Zork, for example, it's a Z5 format file. It's a binary format, so you can't actually look at the source code of those kinds of things. But an interpreter is the software that lets you actually play it. So the software that we're using to play, not these, this one. So if you look at it, you can actually see the URL structure here a little bit, but iPlayIF.com is the website that's hosting this interpreter. The interpreter is called Parchment, and Parchment runs Z5 and other IF game formats in a JavaScript, so you can play it in a web browser. And so that's very accessible, and that's why I use these. I link these. I send you these games with these links because this makes it pretty easy just to get the game running. The game itself may be hard, but the actual game runs in the web browser. You just click a link and it's there. It used to be, before Parchment existed, you would have to download a separate interpreter or a client, and that would be something like Spatterlight for Macs or Gargoyle for Windows. And you can still do those. Those are still a nice way to play these sorts of things, but you no longer have to because there are these web-based interpreters, or really just this one web-based interpreter that I know of. There might be others, but this is the one I know of. But I'll show you Gargoyle in a moment when I demo some things with Zork. Okay, some other terms. Second person. We are almost always playing these games in the second person, so it addresses us as you. This is a thing that is not often done in fiction, but we do see it often in choose your own adventure style books, and I'll show you those in a minute. But that's the standard assumption for these works is that we're playing in the second person. And Loretta, I don't know how it will work on an iPad. I think you'll definitely have a better time on a computer, but it may work on an iPad as well. I would say on an iPad, you're probably not going to be able to use Spatterlight. So I think certainly the web-based, the Parchment interpreter is probably your best bet, but even Parchment may be iffy on an iPad. I don't have an iPad that I can test on, but if you, so that Zork that I linked you all to was a different interpreter. So try Photopia and Galatea and see how they go on your iPad. Those are using the Parchment thing. The thing I linked you all to earlier was using a separate emulation system, and so that is that's a different question ultimately. Like that one may not work on an iPad either. But try Photopia and Galatea, Loretta, and tell me how those work, because those should work, but I don't know. If not, I can do some research and find out what people recommend for iPads, if you prefer to look at it on an iPad. Okay, yeah, so just let me know. All right, so second person, puzzles, certainly. Text adventure is another term of art that's a synonym, basically, with interactive fiction. If you think of especially Zork, there's an adventure going on. Like, you're trying to get all the treasure, and so that's a typical kind of adventure quest narrative kind of thing. So in the big history of video games, right, so you could probably start with Colossal Cave Adventure, and you can make a couple different paths away from Colossal Cave Adventure. Like, you could think of, some people mentioned Dungeons and Dragons in the Perusal thing, by the way. That emerged basically in parallel, not necessarily one causing the other, but around the same time in the early 70s. But Colossal Cave Adventure, as far as being an influential computer game, you could say that it influenced Adventure for Atari by Warren Robinette, and you could say that influenced the Legend of Zelda and all the other kind of graphic adventure games that follow from the Legend of Zelda style games. So there's a whole parallel kind of evolution for those kinds of things, and that have obviously still play out. There are new Zelda games coming out all the time. Well, not all the time, but it is still a very viable franchise. All right, so another term. This is it's kind of a silly term, but you see it a couple times. This idea of thinking of interactive fiction as a second-person thinker. This is a joke term, I think, but it actually is kind of interesting because it's a joke about first-person shooters. First-person shooter is a popular video game genre. It's things like Call of Duty. It's when you control a gun, basically, and you shoot at things. And so it's not usually the most interesting intellectually or narratively, but there are some really interesting ones. But it's usually focuses on action and shooting. By contrast, interactive fiction focuses on thinking and puzzles and reflection. And so the joke here is that these are second-person thinkers as opposed to first-person shooters. So anyway, that's the joke there. Okay, let's talk about a few other precedents. So this is mentioned in the chapter, but I wanted to spend a little bit more time with it and actually demo it. This is Eliza, and I've got it open here in a tab. You can find different implementations of this. In fact, it's kind of a common sort of programming challenge, but I'll put it in the chat in case anyone wants to try it. There is at least one Eliza implementation in a Discord bot, but I couldn't get it working this morning, so it just wouldn't enable. So I need to see if there's another one, or maybe try to code my own. I don't know. This is a work of literary programming, I think, because Eliza is a chatbot. We can chat with Eliza here. Eliza was created in 1966 by Joseph Weizenbaum, and it was programmed to essentially make a joke about psychotherapy. So as a joke, since a joke is a literary genre, or a form of literature, a form of writing, that's something we can do here. All right, so Bobby, you have a question about text adventure or puzzles? I mean, puzzles are puzzles, like things you have to figure out. Text adventure is just the term that we're using. That's basically a synonym with interactive fiction. And text adventure, Bobby, just to maybe add a little bit of context around that, if we want to go back here, the idea is as opposed to a graphic adventure. So graphic adventure meaning that you can see what you're doing as you walk around through different rooms and collect treasure or whatever. A text adventure means you are just reading text instead of seeing yourself move around to different rooms. So the term text adventure comes about as a way to distinguish things like Zork, which is a text adventure, from things like Zelda, which is a graphic adventure. Now we just call it, I mean, since text adventures are so obscure at this point, we don't usually call something like Zork a graphic adventure game. We just call it an adventure game if we call it anything. Usually we call Zelda a game. So, anyways, don't dwell too much on it. I mean, these are terms. Maybe somebody can add them to the Google Doc if you want to try to define them. I do want to move on to demo a couple of things, so let me move on. But we can talk about it later, maybe Wednesday. So as you see here in this explanation here gives it to you a bit. Eliza is meant as a joke and therefore is a kind of literary work. But let's try to actually interact with Eliza. So let's say hello to Eliza, and she will respond. How are you today? What would you like to discuss? I don't know. What would you all like to discuss? How about let's talk about the weather. It's a nice sunny day. Tell me more. Well, it's a nice sunny day. What does that suggest to you? It suggests to me that it is springtime. I don't know why I capitalized that, but that's okay. Eliza doesn't care. That is quite interesting. Is it? I don't know if it's interesting. And okay, so Eliza is going to keep doing things like this, not really offering anything, but continuing to ask us questions. Let's try a different tactic here. So basically, Eliza is programmed just to keep you talking, to keep asking you questions. Eventually, she will turn around and say something like, to remind me about the weather. Like she'll say, you said something about the weather a minute ago. But yeah, basically, she's just not engaging at all at this point. Eliza can come across as rude sometimes because there's nothing there, right? So there's no actual intelligence. You can view the source code of this implementation, and it's right here. All it does is it looks for certain keywords in the text that you enter, and then it uses those keywords to try to extract words and phrases that you've said, and then she puts those back to you as a question, and that's all she does. It's cleverly programmed, but it's not like artificial intelligence. It's not like a brain behind this. It's just some pretty clever, words. And the idea that it is smart, or the feeling that when you see something like this, it feels like it must be an artificial intelligence, that is called the Eliza effect, because it is an observation that whenever a computer system interacts using language and appears to have the ability to use language, we perceive it as a lot smarter than it actually is. So Eliza is not actually smart at all, but we perceive her as an interlocutor, as a conversational partner, and so we think, well, she must be smart. She's not. So that's and none of Eliza's are. Like, that's just what they do. They learn. They just spit the thing back to you. So this is meant as a critique of a particular kind of psychotherapy where the therapist doesn't actually offer any insight. They just repeat the patient's words back to them and ask them questions and get them talking. And that is, I guess, the therapeutic approach. I don't know about its merits or not. I don't really have an opinion about whether or not that works. But at least Weizenbaum's joke was that it was a poor form of therapy, and therefore he was like, it's so simple even a computer could do it, and he wrote the program here to demonstrate that. Okay, so that's Eliza. Let me move on to a couple slides. So this is actually probably a good point to demonstrate this, although I do want to get to Zork too. Maybe I'll do this first though. This is a work that has, I think, kind of the opposite effect. So if Eliza's effect is that we think she's smarter than she is, I think the Facade effect would be that we think it's dumber than it is. We think it's not that sophisticated, but it actually is very sophisticated. And when I played this for the first section, a lot of the students recognized it. Like they knew what it was. So maybe you all do too. I'm kind of surprised actually, but I guess different streamers have played this and done like meme kind of things with it. But I'm going to demo it here really quick. Let me just get started. This is Facade by Michael Mateus and Andrew Stern. And it is a work that creates, or is meant to be, interactive drama. And so the dramatic scenario, it's like, think of it like a one-act play. The scenario is that your friends, Grace and Tripp, are your friends from college, and they've invited you to dinner, and they are having some problems in their relationship. And as a player, you can choose different strategies. Like you can decide that you want to try to help them with their problems. That's most people think of that as kind of the goal of the game, if you think of it as a game. But if we think of it as drama, it can have different kinds of purposes for us as a work. Like we could think of it as something that we that we can interact with in different ways. Bobby, I can send the link, but it's actually like a huge download and it takes a long time. So I'm not going to. I can. You can if you go to interactivestory.net, that's where you can download it from. But you really don't have to, right? I mean, I don't.
Last saw you.
Necessarily recommend it.
But Grace and I thought it'd be great.
Sorry, I'm just skipping this intro. I'm really fascinated that so many of you recognize Facade, that you actually know this, because to me this is a fairly like quirky tech demo, basically something that comes out of the interactive fiction world, and yet you can. I think it is on. I don't know if it's on Steam. I guess it is, but it's a game that people stream and can kind of mess with, and as you'll see, I can probably do. But it's meant to be fiction, like it's meant to be storytelling, so it's not meant to be a joke or whatever. Let's see. I'll be Dan. And I mean, it's pretty. Yes, there are some bugs and some well-known things. But I'm not going to do that right now. But you can see them talking. Grace and Trip, they're having a problem. They're having this argument. So let's go knock on the door. Oh, he's here. What? He said he's coming over from now. I'm gonna keep knocking. Yeah, I'm gonna keep knocking. I guess you can keep knocking.
Dan! Hi! It's so great to see you!
So what you see is that they actually, Grace and Trip, you kind of have to watch their faces and their body language. They react with pretty sophisticated micro expressions to what you're doing as you converse with them, and you can access different parts of their story by different kinds of things. But basically, you build rapport with them, or one or the other of them actually, and you can end up learning more about them or not. You can get kicked out pretty quickly. Like there's a couple of things you can do right away that will offend them and are reasonable things to be offended by.
Hi, how are you? God, it's been a while.
How are you doing?
And you can see how they're
By the
awkward,
way,
right? I
you
mean,
look
they are trying to
So come on in, make
be friendly,
yourself
but you
at
can
home.
see the tension. Like there's a lot of tension between them.
I'm just gonna go close
and
the door.
some of that comes from just the technology seeming kind of
Dan,
stiff, but I think it's also just they are stiff as a couple. There's a lot of tension and even some resentment between them, and so we have to try
Grace,
to
let's not do that.
get them actually talking and listening to each other. That's
I've
basically
been
your
collecting these little glass
Right,
sculptures
so as you walk
for a
around,
long time now.
Everybody always comments on
you
Grace's
can
sculptures.
try different things to get on their good sides.
See, I told you he would like it. There's nothing wrong with it.
See, I like your sculptures.
I'm sure
Great.
I can return most of this and try to start over again on this room.
I like your painting.
Really?
See, Grace, no one has a problem with your decorating.
Frustrated
Well,
complacency.
whatever. I'm
I
going
like
to return most of this anyhow. I have
parentheticals
to
too.
redo this room.
All right, so
Huh. I think I forgot how well you two get along.
how about a drink? Oh, can I actually? Whoop, phone.
Oh, I'll get it.
No, we have a guest. We can let the answering
answer it,
machine
right?
pick it up.
Grace,
Wonder what
no,
happens if I
I
answer
want...
Dear, don't be rude. It's probably just
Grace?
Dan.
Grace, hello?
No, please don't do that.
No new messages.
It's just
Oh,
it's
my dad. I
so
can
hard to
hear his
resist the
voice.
temptation of like
Oh,
messing with
good. You
stuff in
hung
this
up.
game.
I can call him back later, or in a few
Yeah,
days.
just
Oh, I
comfortable.
wanted
no,
to say
Chip,
hello.
we're entertaining.
Oh,
Right. So you can see my hand,
Hugging
my
me.
ability to control. I can do different
Good
things.
to
I
see you
can
two
hug and comfort. I
bonding
can
again.
also kiss them, and they don't like that. Hey, go in
well,
the other door.
Grace's
Oh, okay,
parents.
there it goes.
There's something else. Really
Um,
classy.
No,
So,
they're
let's see. Let
impossible.
me just
They're
go
always
ahead and
expecting me to act like
get
the
a bad
dutiful
ending here.
daughter. It's so annoying.
Let's see. I'll hug. Can I hug him? So, yeah, you see, he looks shocked, right? I mean, I've done something really awkward. I've hugged this person unexpectedly, and look at Grace. She's starting to
You're
get
really
angry.
laying it on thick tonight.
Let's see if I can help her.
You know what? I'll be right
I
back.
can make her. Oh no, she's left. Okay, so
Grace,
I will
sweetie,
continue
wait.
to
No,
comfort
stay put. I'll just be in the kitchen.
Grace. I mean, Trip here. can also kiss him, so let's see what happens. He's not interested, right?
Grace, sweetie pie, could you bring out some of that?
I didn't write this down.
There she is.
What? Oh.
Whoa. Whoa. She
Dan?
responded differently than I expected there. She's kind of okay with it. Weird. Okay, so is Dan? Maybe it's
going back to
because
the living
we're
room.
alone in the kitchen. Weird. Okay. you know this game you
Everything's
can
fine,
discover all
Trip.
kinds of things with it.
Everything's
Yeah.
fine.
It's
everything's
like I was
fine.
saying, a lot more rich than you might think it is. There's a lot more going on here than.
Oh,
Oh, you're hugging me.
She's-
well, that was
she's
nice.
not
I'm sure Grace appreciates
offended. Okay,
that.
interesting. Well, let me go ahead and get kicked out. Let me just see. Let me just.
By
keep
the way-
kissing him. Oh, I missed.
You,
Really?
you,
Yeah. He's looking pretty angry. No, they're just looking shocked now. Let me go back up here. Oh, I sat down. I didn't mean to sit down. I'll just hug her.
why?
What we really need to do.
Yeah, they're just like being awkward, right? Because I'm
we
being
need to
awkward. Like
clean
I'm being
the,
weird in their house. Like I'm coming over here and
Yeah.
hugging
that
them
air
and stuff,
pressure
and they're like,
thing under
okay.
the sink.
And so they're trying to get me to
Needs
leave
be,
basically at this point.
Reconnected.
Let me
Yes,
see if I can
right.
just leave
Yeah.
on my own. Maybe I can. But they can also kick me out pretty easily.
Yeah.
I guess I should have been talking to them too. But okay, that was me leaving. Yeah, so I didn't actually do much actual interaction there, but you can actually type at any point, and that's you talking as the player character. Right. So it's not turn based. So in other words, it just happens in real time as you go through it. All right. So let me show you Colossal Cave Adventure, and I will also show you some things in Zork, hopefully. So this is Colossal Cave Adventure running in Parchment, and it's different ways you can find a link to it. This is the original, and it has some things pretty much in common with Zork, right? I mean, at least at the beginning. But you actually explore a cave. It is based on a real cave, by the way. This is a journal article, an academic scholarly article about Colossal Cave Adventure, the game. And what's great about this article is that Dennis Church, the author of this article, went to the cave and he took some pictures. So you can see him, here, going into the cave that is the subject of this text adventure game. So let's see, where am I? I can get my password manager is trying to fill in my address here, which is weird, but that's not true. All right, so let's go. Where am I? Oh, I'm at the end of the road. Let's go down the hill, slit in the stream bed. Let's go down the hill. Oh, I don't fit through the 2-inch slit in the rock. South from here? Yeah, there we go. Outside of the grate. And so here's a grate, a steel grate mounted in concrete. Let's open the grate. It seems to be locked. Do I have a key? Nope. I need to go back to the house. Oh well. Basically, you have to get a key and you have to use the key to unlock the grate. And there's a series of other puzzles like that. They're pretty low-level puzzles, though. I mean, it's really just kind of trying to find the thing, you need to unlock the thing that you're trying to get to. There is a maze inside it of twisty little passages, and that's where the title of Nick Montfort's book comes from. And it's just a common term of art or reference within geek culture, the idea of twisty little passages. Okay, I do want to show you Zork in Gargoyle, really just to show you a different example of an interpreter. So this is Zork, and this is Gargoyle. It looks nicer, basically. That's the main thing I wanted to show you. That the software actually looks elegant. Like, it actually looks pretty clean. You have to download it and install Gargoyle or Spatterlight if you're on a Mac, and they actually look pretty similar between the two of them. Then you also have to find and download a Z5 file of Zork. So that's the compiled binary of Zork. And if you just Google Zork Z5, you'll find it. I think I might have uploaded it in Canvas as well. Sorry for the screaming. I don't know if you can hear the screaming sounds, but my son we got a trampoline, and those are happy sounds, I think, but it's amazing how loud he is. Okay, so this is Zork. We're west of the house. So my inventory is, I'm currently empty-handed. Notice I'm just typing short commands here just to kind of, because typing inventory, the whole word is kind of long. So you can also just type the I to see what your inventory is. These little shortcuts, by the way, they work just as well in Photopia or Galatea as well. It's just they'll have different results. Okay, so we are west of the house, so we should try to go east into the house, but we can't because the door is boarded and you can't remove the boards. You can go around the house though, so let's go around to the south side. Now it says you are facing the south side of a white house. There is no door here and all the windows are boarded. So we can't go in that way, but let's keep going around the house. Now we're behind the house. We continue east, so we're behind the house. A path leads into the forest to the east. In one corner of the house, there is a small window, which is slightly ajar. Interesting. All right, so now that that window is slightly ajar, perhaps we can do something with it. Perhaps we can open window. So you notice that I just say open window. I don't type open the window. That would have actually worked, it seems, but it's already open, so I don't have to do that. You will see, by the way, Zork has a lot of like snarky responses. Like it kind of talks down to you as a player. In fact, it is implied anyway that Zork is the parser. Like Zork is the being that you're actually conversing with when you type commands here, and Zork has opinions about you as the player. So you can do things like, for example, this is kind of an Easter egg almost. If you try to jump, it says, very good, now you can go to second grade. If you keep entering the same command, jump. Are you enjoying yourself? Jump. Do you expect me to applaud? Whee! Are you enjoying yourself? So it just kind of keeps going like that in a loop, but it's, making fun of you basically. By the way, what I'm doing there, if you hit the up arrow key, it will re-enter the previous command, or you can go back through your list of things you've typed. So that gets easy. That helps save a little bit of time if you have to do something repetitive ever in a game. Okay, so did I open the window? I did. So now I should be able to go west into the house, and I am in the kitchen. A table seems to have been used recently for the preparation of food. Recent, that means there might be someone else here. A passage leads to the west, and a dark staircase can be seen leading upward. A dark chimney leads down, and to the east is a small window which is open, because that's the window I just came through. On the table is an elongated brown sack smelling of hot peppers. Can you close that door, please? Okay. Thanks. So let me get that sack. Let me get that bottle. And let me go upstairs and show you what happens if you... This is basically the first puzzle of the game. You have moved into a dark place. It is pitch black. You are likely to be eaten by a group. So you see, I don't see a room description. There's nothing to see here. I can look, but it just keeps saying it is pitch black. There's nothing to do. I can't. It says I'm likely to be eaten by a group. It doesn't tell me there is a group here, but if I try to look at it, it won't tell me anything. Well, it does tell me general description of a group. But if I keep looking around and just kind of waiting, time passes. Oh, it's actually not killing me. It should be killing me. But I guess it's not. Okay. Well, I think what it is I have to try to move. If you try to move in the dark, that's when you get eaten by a group. So let me try to move. Let me go east. And I died. Okay, there it is. That's what you have to do. So if you try to move in a dark place, you get eaten by a group, which is what happened just now. And then it just drops you out in the forest. And so I just find it easier to restart. So let me go. Oops. Oh, I did it again. Let's go around the north side, and then open window, and now I'm in the house again. And so hopefully you're seeing, by the way, how quickly you can move through this once you know the terms and how to go in and out of things. So now I'm in the kitchen. I want to go west here, and here's how you can actually survive in a dark place. It says a battery-powered brass lantern is on the trophy case. So if I get lantern or get lamp, that is now taken and it is in my inventory. I can turn on lamp, and now the brass lantern is on. And now if I go back east to the kitchen and then go up the stairs from the kitchen, I'm in the attic again. And now that I have the light on, I can actually see what's here. There's a large coil of rope, and there's a knife. So I can go ahead and get those things, and then I can go back downstairs and then back to the living room. So the living room is how you can access the underground empire. And so the underground empire is the goal. That's what you should be trying to get to. It's not the end goal of the game. It's really just the beginning of the game itself. But this is where you should try to get to. And there is a way to do it. I'm out of time, but I can show you if you want to keep watching how to get to the underground empire from here. Otherwise, if you do need to go, then Wednesday's class, remember, will be the odd cohort in person, everyone else on Zoom, and please play Galatea, and please complete Photopia so that we can talk about it. Those are the two things, and it's the standard homework options for Wednesday. So if you want to do a meme or summary or whatever, those are all fine. Okay, so let me show you how to get how to figure this kind of thing out. So this is a puzzle game, right? So we know that there's a solution here, but it's not going to be obvious. So we have to take stock of what we have to work with. We have in the inventory a few things. Looking around the room, there are a few other items that I might be able to interact with. So I could look at the wooden door. It tells me the engravings translate to this space intentionally left blank. So, very funny. There's a trophy case here. I can learn about that. Look at trophy case. Trophy case is empty. All right, so that's interesting. And also we know that there's a large oriental rug in the center of the room. Let's look at the rug. It says there's nothing special about the carpet. All right. Now, can we look under the carpet, you think? Let's try. Look under carpet. Underneath the rug is a closed trapdoor. There we go. As you drop the corner of the rug, the trapdoor is once again concealed from view. So we peeked under the rug, but the trapdoor is still there. So can we try to get the rug? So we can't pick it up. Can we cut the rug? Cut a hole in the rug? Strange concept, cutting the carpet. So basically the game here is saying, no, don't do that. It basically is saying that doesn't make sense. So what else can we do to the rug to get at what is under it? If you have a guess, you can type, or else, yeah, there you go, drag rug. That's a good idea. So let's try it. They didn't know the word drag, so now we have to think of a word that is and there are different words that we have to think of a simpler synonym, basically. And I will go ahead and give you so Loretta's on the right track, definitely. The idea is you just have to move it. So let's try to move the rug. And indeed, with great effort, the rug is moved to one side of the room, revealing the dusty cover of a closed trapdoor. So yeah, so he had the right strategy, but you just have to find the right verb. And usually you want to think of the simplest possible synonym for whatever you're trying to get across. And move is the one here. So now that the door is visible, we can open it. Open trapdoor. We have to specify which door. Like if we type open door, there's actually three doors here. So it needs to know which one we mean. So let's say open the trapdoor. The door reluctantly opens to reveal a rickety staircase descending into darkness. Hey, all right. So I can check out my inventory. I do have the lamp on, so I am safe to go down into the darkness. And I will go down with the letter D. And now I'm in the cellar. So this is really the entry to the Underground Empire. And so that's where I wanted you to get to for class today. If you didn't, you saw me do it just now, but I do want you to try to do it yourself to get a feel for how these games work. I mean, get a sense of how moving around works, how different puzzle solving things work. See what else you can figure out. The next thing that you will likely encounter if you play this game is the troll. So see if you can figure out how to deal with the troll, right? Well, that's it for class today. It went a little bit over, but I did want to show you that. I still have viewers, so I assume that was okay with you all to watch that a little bit. But really, I mean, seriously, if you have problems with these things, you need to ask for help so I can help. I don't want you to just struggle and then assume that it's okay not to do it, because I want you to do these things. And you can do these things, and I can help you do these things, or other people can too. So if you get stuck, especially in Photopia, if you get stuck in the Crystal Maze or on the Golden Beach or wherever, ask for help and I can help. I can tell you what to do, probably. So, yeah. There are certain choices you can make in Photopia, by the way, that will lead you to different information as you play the game. But the main thing is pay attention to who you're playing as in Photopia, and that'll help you make sense of it as a narrative. Okay, well, I'll wrap it up. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Have a good day, and I will see you all either in person or on Zoom on Wednesday. So that's it. I'm going to switch to the bird cam for a few minutes and see if anything shows up. Probably not if my kids are screaming in the backyard. All right, see you all later. Bye.